Right now at 6, new details from a neighborhood shocked by the deaths of a mother and 3 young children.
Sometimes they'd be playing around here, just a normal family.
Plus, frustration after another vicious dog attack lands a man in the hospital, with the dog and owner apparently still on the streets.
He needs to be able to walk in his neighborhood and not concerned about dogs biting him.
And call it a case of Wednesday whiplash as the markets soar after President Trump largely pauses some tariffs but cranks them up on China.
We're a very small business, so we don't want to pay that off to our customer, and it's not something that we can afford.
We begin at 6 with breaking news from Bend, where a snowboarder has died at Mount Bachelor Ski Resort. The Deschutes County Sheriff's Office says the 13-year-old from Anacortes, Washington, crashed into a tree this morning and died.
It appears that snowboarder was wearing a helmet. From what we can tell, the boy was inbounds just 400 meters or so uphill from Sunrise Lodge. Ski Patrol was dispatched and tried to save his life. Keep in mind, this is the second fatal accident at the resort in less than a month. Last month, the skier from Seattle was killed after falling into a tree well. We, of course, will keep you updated. Okay, to more breaking news now, this time in Cornelius, where this evening the Washington County Sheriff's Office has identified the woman and her 3 young children found dead in their home.
They include the mother, 37-year-old Hung Feng Lei, and 3 children, a boy and 2 girls, ages 7, 5, and 2. You can see them listed there on your screen. John Adams is live in Cornelius with the update. John, a tragic situation all around.
Christine and David, it really is. In addition to the names of the family members involved, we also learned today that 2 of the children were students at a local elementary school that's just a few blocks away from their home. This home on North 15th Avenue near North Davis Street in Cornelius was quiet on Wednesday, just 24 hours after a mother and her 3 children, aged 7, 5, and 2, were found dead inside. The Washington County Sheriff's Office released the identities of 37-year-old Hung Feng Lei and her children late Wednesday afternoon. The tragedy has shocked the community here and spurred acts of kindness.
It was just a sentimental gesture that I had to bring something to them.
This woman stopped by to drop off flowers on the family's porch. She tells us she didn't know them well, but would see them occasionally.
I saw the kids a few times when they would go to school and when the mom would pick them up. Sometimes they'd be playing around here, just a normal family.
Dispatch audio indicates a man called 911 after finding the family dead inside the home Tuesday afternoon. The Forest Grove School District confirmed the 2 oldest children were students at Cornelius Elementary School, which is just blocks from where the family was living. The district is providing grief and mental health care resources for students, staff, and families at the school. In a statement, the district said, in part, "Our students are going through a lot and need to focus on getting the support they need and to focus as much as possible on their school routines."
I mean, it's really important to provide young kids support and acknowledge that they experience loss just as all ages do.
Alicia Lacey, a director of program services at Dougie Center, which offers counseling services in Portland, also had this advice for parents of young children who may be experiencing grief from this tragedy.
Offering, just kind of increased emotional and physical nurturance can always just be, kind of helpful. Holding your kiddos tight and, giving them some extra just feelings of being safe with them.
Well, we talked about those flowers that were left on the porch earlier, and just in the last hour, some stuffed animals, some more flowers, and a candle left outside the fence of the family's home. Now, this is still an ongoing investigation, and the Washington County Sheriff's Office continues to ask anyone who may know anything about what may have happened to contact their investigative team. David and Christine, back to you.
Difficult information to process, but again, our John Adams reporting live from Cornelius. Thank you, John.
All right, another difficult story here in your headlines. Portland police have now identified a man they say broke into a southeast Portland apartment overnight and then sexually assaulted a woman. Just before midnight, people in the Reed neighborhood near Southeast 30th and Schiller reported a man climbing fences and balconies. Officers say they searched the area but say they were unable to find that suspect. Then just before 5 a.m., police say a man broke into an apartment in the same area and then assaulted a woman who was asleep before another resident chased him out. Officers say they found the suspect, 39-year-old Michael Lynn Moore, using a drone and canine, and then arrested him. He's facing charges including multiple counts of sexual abuse and burglary. The victim was taken to the hospital and has since been released.
In Boise, Brian Kohberger, the man accused of murdering 4 University of Idaho students, was back in court today. The 2-day hearing could lay the ground rules for what evidence may be admitted at trial. In recent months, Kohberger's lawyers have filed a number of motions trying to exclude some key evidence. This includes text messages between the 2 surviving roommates, the testimony of one of those roommates, and a recording of the 911 call. They also argue Kohberger's autism diagnosis should exclude him from the death penalty. The trial is set to start in August.
And the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality, or DEQ, says it is dealing with a cyber attack. This morning, DEQ said it was in the process of shutting down its networks to try and isolate and contain the attack. This means emissions inspection stations right now are unavailable. At this point, it's unclear what, if anything else, has been impacted. The state's Enterprise Information Services is now investigating. Matt?
All right, David, we had a pretty good day, actually. A lot of cloud cover, but it didn't keep us from warming into the mid-60s, well above average for this time of the year. Portland hit 66, 64 up at Kelso, 64 at Corvallis, 72 down in Brookings, a little bit cooler over on the Oregon coast, and the clouds are thickening up on the coast, too. That's Lincoln City for you right now, 59 degrees there. Up on the mountain is slowly being shrouded in cloud. We could see the entire peak of Mount Hood about an hour and a half ago. Now you can barely see the top of the ski lifts there. So the clouds are descending, and that's usually a sign of an incoming weather system, and that is indeed the case later tonight and tomorrow. But the rain holds off in western Oregon until late tomorrow afternoon. Sooner at the coast, but for the valley here, be about 3 o'clock or so when the rain sets in. So dry for the morning commute, rainy for the afternoon commute. And then, after a couple of days that are mainly dry, but with a few showers, Friday, Saturday, nice warm-up begins on Sunday. We'll let you know how warm a bit later, guys. Back to you.
A lot of folks will love that. Thank you, Matt.
Now to another terrifying dog mauling story in Portland. Last week, we told you about a 68-year-old FedEx worker who says she was mauled by a dog that appeared to be owned by a homeless woman.
Now we're learning about another attack last December in basically the same area. Daisy Caballero has that story.
Right now, we're near the corner of MLK and Knott Street, where I'm told a nearly 80-year-old man says that he was mauled by a homeless person's dog back in December, nearly 10 blocks away from the mauling incident we told you about last week.
When you see the pictures of what happened, just like Mrs. Johnson's leg, a child would not survive that.
Another Portland family is speaking out after their 78-year-old dad was mauled by a dog, causing severe injury to his left arm.
When my brother sent the photo, I said that wasn't a dog mauling. That looks like a mountain lion. I mean, a mountain cat. It was just horrible.
Elizabeth Iverson says her dad Roland was on his daily morning walk back on December 2nd, taking the same route he's walked for over 40 years. When
homeless people had their dog on a leash, but the dog jumped up on my dad and the other dog came from behind him and grabbed his arm and pulled him down.
She says Roland was then left on the ground bleeding while the dog owners ran away and into these RV trailers without calling for medical help.
Bystander, she was driving by, she saw what happened, and she took the jacket off and saw the size of the wound and said, we need to take you to the hospital immediately.
That bystander dropped him off at the hospital and he got 28 stitches. And according to Elizabeth, that dog and its owner were never caught.
Animal control, the police reached out to them. They came the next morning. And unfortunately, because the other homeless people gave insight to her that they knew about that animal control was coming, she took her Rottweiler dog and they took off.
KGW reached out to Multnomah County Animal Services for an interview and clarification on this incident, but didn't hear back in time. And while the family is thankful for their dad's full recovery, this has affected his desire to walk in his own neighborhood.
And there needs to be a balance, right, of people living together. But when one people group overtakes the injuries or the safety and the security of innocent people who are just walking or walking to work, that gets infuriating, actually, Daisy.
Daisy Cabello reporting there. All right, new tonight, we are learning that the Trump administration has canceled visas for even more international students in the Northwest.
In the last couple of hours, we've learned 10 students at Oregon State University have had their visas terminated by the Department of Homeland Security. This after earlier today, we learned 3 more University of Oregon students had their visas revoked, bringing the total there to 7. A U of O spokesperson says DHS told them the revocations were based on unspecified criminal charges, and the students have 15 days to leave the country. At Portland State University, a spokesperson says no PSU students or recent graduates have had their visas revoked. Meantime, 9 University of Washington students and recent graduates have had their visas taken away, and reports out of Spokane say 2 Gonzaga students' visas were canceled, as well as 2 students at the University of Idaho and a graduate student at Washington State.